friends. This is the Be Real Babe podcast, a place where your average babes come together to talk about life stresses, messes, and successes. A place where being yourself is the ultimate goal, where your opinion, your story, and your individual experience matters. Join me, your host B, and my guests for real and raw talks every week, laying it all out there so we can all help each other learn more, grow deeper, and evolve collectively. Now keep in mind, as a disclaimer, no one here is an expert and no one is giving any advice. This is strictly our opinions, thoughts, feelings, and for entertainment purposes only. Now with that being said, it's time. So grab your drink, grab your joint, and let's jump right in. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Be Real Babe podcast. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for stopping by the show today. I hope that you have a good time. And if you're a returning listener, watcher, supporter, I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming back time and time again. For those that don't know me, my name is Brandy. I am the host of the show, and today you guys were on episode 207, Being Real About Body Dysmorphia with Darrian. You guys, I am so excited. It is 2025. Not as I'm recording it, but as this posts, and I cannot wait for this final season of season 8 and to jump into season 9, and especially this episode with an absolute queen, you guys, someone that I look up to so much, especially in the fitness and bodybuilding and body space and mindset. Oh, you guys are going to love her so much. But before we get into this amazing fire episode, first one of 2025, I just want to remind you, if you are listening on YouTube or Rumble, to like, subscribe, and turn on those notifications. Same if you're listening on Spotify audio and Apple, you can also turn on notifications and leave your girl a review. It really helps me break out. And if you want to follow me on social media, going forward, you're only going to be able to find me on TikTok and Instagram at the Be Real Babe. I am so excited, you guys. I have a couple more episodes. As promised, I have some guests to finish out season 8, and then I'm going to take a small break, a 5-week break, and come back for season 9 at the beginning of March. I'm super excited. I'll tell you more in the season finale, who also has I also have amazing guest for. But I'm going to shut the fuck up because it is time that I have someone else be on the show with me for once. Thank you guys so much, as always, for the support, the patience. 2024 was absolutely insane. 2 full seasons done on my own. Going to go to 2 more at least. So I would not be here if it's not for you guys. So thank you guys so much again. And let's get on to the episode. All right, babes, it's time to get on to the show. And with me today, I have a very special guest joining me for her first time. Now, y'all, this is one of my favorite human beings, and I cannot wait for you to meet her. I'd like to welcome Darrian to the show. Hey, babe, how's it going?
Hey babe, I'm good. How's your day?
Oh, so excited now that I get to see you. It's been so long.
I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. And I thought this is a perfect episode because it's something I have talked about on the show before, but it's been a while, and you're someone that I like really look up to in this space, and the mindset that you have for your body. And I know that that's not always how it's been. So I just thought this is a perfect topic to have you on for your first episode, and to pick your brain of how you got to where you are, and just some real talk with one of my favorite babes. But before we do that, can you give the community a little Cole's notes of who is the beautiful Darrian?
Yes, so Cole's notes about me. I am a girl working in corporate who loves fitness, but has had a complicated relationship with fitness, as I'm sure like most women have. I'm really lucky too, because I grew up in a time between social media and not social media. But I grew up in a small town, so I grew up with less impact. I find cities, it's so much more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
My small town stayed a little bit more, I guess the best way I can say it is like conservative. There
Yes.
wasn't as much exposure to like lip injections and things like that. So I
Yes.
grew up in a more natural zone. And it's sort of like changed as I moved into cities. So now that I'm older and living in cities, working in corporate, I have more exposure to those things, which I think just makes us way more aware of our bodies.
Oh, yes.
But I've been a bodybuilder, I've played soccer, I've basically grown up in fitness in a whole bunch of ways. And just now, at almost 30, do I feel like I have an actual good relationship with it. Like
Yes.
30 years of womanhood, and I just got there.
Right. And I swear that I feel like almost like you have to, right? Like looking back to and watching all my girlfriends and looking around too and listening to their stories, I honestly feel like it's almost like you have to go through that. And maybe that's just the way society's built, right? It's just like you're gonna be awkward when you're a teenager. I mean, I'm sorry. nowadays, like this TikTok generation, like they don't get to be as awkward. Like, I'm sorry, they didn't have the white eyeliner and the like line of concealer and the like heavy blush. Like, I feel like they kind of getting robbed of that a little bit. I'm also, of course, low key jealous because like I don't know how to fucking contour and I'm 38 years old, but I think that's super important what you said about the small town because that's how I grew up too, right? So it was there, but it was just on entertainment. It wasn't in our everyday lives, everyday people. Is that kind of how you felt too? Like you've seen it on the outsides, but it wasn't like your everyday people in your everyday life.
Totally, 100%. I grew up in Fernie, BC,
Mm.
so a lot of people don't even know where that is, but it's like a tiny town by Cranbrook, BC, which is also a tiny town, near Calgary, Alberta, which is a familiar place, but this is just right on the other side of the border in BC.
Mhm.
5,000 people, farm town,
Yeah.
mining town. It was weird if someone was really dolled up or
Mm.
over the top. So, like you said, it was entertainment. Like we watched TV,
Yeah.
but there was always a joke in my hometown, like, "Oh, why would anybody buy a dress? There's nowhere to wear it, right?" And then,
Totally get that. For being
and
from
then
small Port Alberni, like why? Like unless it's hot out. Like I'm wearing a dress because it's hot, not because I'm wearing a dress to like an event.
yes, oh my gosh, Port Alberni, you totally get it. Like
Yeah.
it's a completely different world. And
Yes.
I actually am so grateful that's where I grew up,
Hmm.
because I can't imagine. And I look at the exposure in Kelowna and I'm like,
Mm.
oh my gosh, you'd be so confused as a young woman here about what age or what a woman is supposed to look like. Like, you have no idea. And I think it doesn't help that it makes younger girls be sexualized earlier because they feel
Yes.
like they need to look a certain way. And it's like that innocence of being like a young girl is robbed from you. And
Yes.
I'm glad I grew up in a small town.
Yes, it's like when you kind of watch the transition of like when you're playing from Barbies to trying to be the Barbie, right? And I feel like when you have like a smaller town and smaller people and they are just focused on mining and fishing and logging and that's what most of our parents did and moms were stay at home or doing like something in the schools. Like it wasn't big city fashion and malls everywhere and shopping and like that wasn't the bread and butter of the city, so that wasn't the focus of everyone. It was like small town, right? And I feel like we were able to play outside more and have more connections to real life and small town life. It is kind of how the stupid fucking Christmas movies make it out to be like, oh, you're from the big city. But it's like, no, but seriously though, I remember moving to Grand Prairie and being like, wow, it's so big here. And like Grand Prairie is not a big city or like as much, but it is still a lot fancier, right? We could wear dresses to things. There was events, right? But I think that's like the difference is that you get to keep your, like you said, your childhood and your innocence much longer, and we didn't have social media, so again it was just an entertainment in movies. It wasn't people down the street getting injections in their lips or filtering or having photoshop photos, family photos. Like you didn't see that. You've seen photos like before social media, a boudoir photo was like someone had that they got that for themselves or for like a gift. You didn't see those. Now it's like you open Instagram and you're seeing booty holes every day all the time. It's like that's how I kind of see the comparison, right? So it's like it's a lot for people that are from small towns.
Yeah, it used to be a picture in your pocket. It's still a picture in your pocket, but you just have 50 booty holes in your pocket now instead of one. Like,
I like options, but I don't want that many options of that, please and thank you. And like you used to have to go and
yeah,
like go to the back of the video store to get like porno movies, and now it's just like you literally can get it for free anywhere or paying for it, right? It's just I agree. I think small towns are so beautiful if you want to keep your child's innocence to them.
I agree. It sounds crazy too, but it is just honestly what I've noticed having lived in both. It's like
Yeah.
a city forces you to grow up a bit faster. I think there's exposure to things that you wouldn't necessarily see it in small towns, and so it's just becomes part of your everyday life here, and you just grow up quicker subconsciously. And I think your parents even have less control of it because it's just every time you go outside. In a
Yes.
small town, parents have more control too. There's more communication. Like, I don't know about you, but like all my friends' parents knew where I
Oh yeah.
was. Like
Yep.
if one of the girls was like self-harming or actually suffering from an eating disorder and the parents heard the kids talking about it, they would talk to the other parents. Like it was a
Mm-hmm.
close-knit community.
Community.
So I
Yep.
feel like there was even more support support than in city communities.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
just my perception, maybe, but that's what I've noticed
Yes.
personally.
Yeah, and I mean that's how you grew up, right? You're allowed totally to have that experience, and I say that too in Port. Like it was, we everyone knew where their someone was maybe being mistreated, and like you're just closer. You knew those things, and as you get into bigger cities, kids get lost, right? They classrooms that have 15 kids versus 35, like that's a huge difference. And we see schools closing down. They get bigger and bigger. Kids get more lost in the system. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And so keeping the innocence, and I feel like in smaller towns you have to be a little bit more creative. But that's what I do like about Kelowna, is because there is so much outside. That's what our allure was here. Is like there's city life for sure, but there's also a part that you can just completely be away from the city and enjoy nature and that kind of thing. So I like the balance of both. But I feel like when you're in smaller towns and you don't have, as like I said, many malls or attractions, you have to be a little bit more creative. So you're kind of reaching out. But if it's like always about entertainment and the malls and all of that, like kids are going to be exposed to more of that. And so going back to when you were a kid, you said, were you always like an athlete when you were a kid? Were you into fitness as in school? Did you love it, or did you try to get out of gym class? Because I definitely love fitness, but tried to get out of gym class.
I loved fitness. Gym class was the one class I liked, and I had a single dad for a good part of growing up, and he didn't allow my sister and I to like talk about calories or weigh ourselves. Like he wanted us to have like a really positive body image. I remember we didn't have a scale in my house growing up,
Cool.
and I had friends growing up who had really bad eating disorders, and I always could really sympathize with them and was supportive, but I never understood it. Thank God, I feel so blessed for that. Like, I can't imagine. I know it's something so many women struggle with, but I really credit my dad because I didn't grow up aware of my weight or physical appearance. I grew up more aware of my sexual body just because of how
Mm,
men treated me. Like, from a
that's a
young
good point.
age, I had bigger legs. And I always had jokes about like having a big ass, or one of my favorite ones that this sticks out to me because it happened so often was I would go to gym class, and I went to a school with a uniform, so that helped as well.
Okay.
So we all had the same size gym shorts. I had big legs, so mine were shorter, and my teachers would always be like, you need to wear longer shorts. And I'm like, these are the uniform shorts. Like, I'm doing my best. And so I was aware of my body, but not in a way where I was like uncomfortable with my weight.
Yeah.
I felt like I didn't become uncomfortable with my weight until like early 20s when Instagram became hopping. Like as I came out of high school, Instagram was there, but we were still just posting pictures of our
Yeah,
food and like song lyrics.
I thought it was a filter thing, man. Like I had no idea that it was a social thing at first. Like I thought it was just like you posted the picture on your thing to get the filtered copy of it. I didn't realize that other people in the world could see it. So, yeah, if you scroll back, which you probably can't. Oh no, the account's gone now. Never mind. But I agree. Like at that time it was like it was just get different filters on your pictures, not like Facebook was at the time.
Yeah, and I'm sure you know, like in my early high school years, nobody had like fancy iPhones. Like you
No.
had a digital camera
Yeah.
or that you plugged into a laptop, and you had an iPad and like a flip phone.
I miss
So
it.
I feel like I was really lucky in my
Mhm.
early years, but it it hit me in my 20s, and that just goes to show that diet culture can get you at any age. It
Yes.
doesn't matter if you're young and impressionable. It's really can hit you no matter what. And Instagram is crazy because like it's an algorithm tailored to you. So
Mm.
it's going to show you things from your age group and things that, you know,
You're
are
liking and
related to that part of your body.
yeah.
I wouldn't want to be a teenager now. Let me tell you.
Oh my God, no, no. And that's such a good point too, that even having a foundation like a father that was helping you understand that, like I don't feel like I grew up in a place where it was purposely talked about. I think it was the lack of confidence within the adults in my life and their negative self-talk that affected me, because it was like, oh my gosh, like if you think you like, I just thought that's the thing that you did. And like, and people that were proud of their bodies were like snobs and thought that they were so right. So you just like, you didn't want to be a snobby person, be proud and confident of your body, like it was such a mix. It wasn't like anybody told me personally like, oh my, well, that's not true. Let me back that up. I'd say like my mom and all that, but there were people around that would be like, "Oh, you're so small, you need to eat more," or like people would threaten me because I was so small, right? And be like physically threaten me because I was so skinny, and like and so. But I was never told like you're so fat, and you need to watch those things. But there's so many people that have that from a very early age where their parents are telling them count their calories, doing all that, and then it just develops in adult age. And so it's like it's understandable why an adult they have body dysmorphia, but even just showing you can have a solid foundation where that wasn't a conversation in your home, and it could still get you. Like I think that's where it's like universally everyone should understand that everyone goes through this in one way, shape, or form. I guess is my point.
Oh, totally. And it might look different for everyone. And that's something that I think isn't talked about enough either. Like, there's shaming on every end of the spectrum here. And I think commenting on a young woman's body about being thin or
Thick.
overweight
Yeah.
is unfair. And there's a lot of conditions where there's a lack of control. You don't know someone's full health story just by looking at them. And just goes to show too, even being constantly commented on for your size, whether it be overweight, underweight, it's still damaging. It still leaves a mark because you're not born with an awareness of your weight. That
Mm-hmm.
comes from society and the people around you. So it's damaging. And I think this whole thin people have no struggles or they don't face the same problems. It's just as damaging as the hatred or malice towards larger people. There should just be no hatred and no malice towards people's bodies. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know where it comes from, but it needs to just be stopped.
Yes. And I think too, even the positive ones can be dangerous too, right? So, like, let's look at somebody like, for example, do you know who Eugenia Cooney is? She's a streamer,
Oh,
right? So, even for that, let's just say, and no one knows, but like, it seems as if she has, like, I'd say anorexia in a sense where she's obviously, not eating much. She's very, very thin. And I think when people comment good or bad, it contributes to that, right? So, if you have body dysmorphia, and let's say, and we'll get to this too because I'm sure you've been there, like fitness can be really great, but it can be really toxic too. So if you get addicted to the positive comments, and then let's say you're not getting them, or your algorithm's not serving, like, and you're not getting that, I feel like that is damaging too, because you're getting that dopamine from someone else's validation. And when that goes away for whatever reason, maybe you've been doing it for 20 years and people are just tired of it, or you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't necessarily mean that, but you've attached yourself to those positive comments about your body, the looks of them. I think that's where it gets dangerous. And I hope the conversation, and I think it has, going from aesthetics to strength and your capabilities versus what that looks like. Because look at fucking, let's say, CrossFitters. CrossFitters are usually fucking super, or like strength trainers. They're super, super tough. And you can put them beside someone that looks really tough in bodybuilding competitions, and they'll plow them through for strength, right? Doesn't always mean that someone that looks fit is fit on both spectrums.
oh, exactly. And that's such an important point. And that's what caused my body dysmorphia was the positive comments. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, but that was a slippery slope for me
It
as someone
is.
who'd never had awareness about body dysmorphia. And then I was being praised. Oh my gosh, like say what you want to say. People can say they don't care about that all they want,
They
but
do. Everybody
they
does.
do.
It's human
Everybody does.
nature.
And
Shut the fuck up. It's human nature.
when people are telling you you look amazing, that feels great.
Feels
But
great.
I'll tell you right now, like I've been at a very lean sub like 12% body fat for a bodybuilding show, and it's the worst I've ever felt.
Mm. I feel
Not the
most people
best.
will say that too. It's a lot of sacrifice. And back to your Instagram point, I think what's important for you is when you started feeling that from Instagram, we're now just trying to relate that it's a highlight reel. And we know this and we talk about it and we're aware of it now. But when Instagram first came out, I think it's really important to notice that we didn't really think about that just being highlight reels. We just assumed, and the
No.
comparison was insane because you're just like, you're not really realizing. I know that sounds really stupid because, like, duh, but at the same time, I don't think we did. So when you're going through that, at the same time, it's like having no awareness that that's a highlight reel, and then you're like, I got to keep up with the Joneses. I got to be this because that's how I get this good feeling, and this feels so good. And I didn't even know. that this was a thing, and now it feels really good, and now it's gone, and what's wrong with me? And then all of a sudden now it's developing these questions of like your worth that you didn't have before, and it's wild how quickly that can turn. So I just think it's important that everyone knows that everybody at every size and every time in their lives can develop some sort of body dysmorphia.
Exactly. And it can come from anywhere. It can come from any source. And the social media aspect of it is wild with the algorithm too, because you're always getting things tailored to you. And I think it's important to always remind yourself. I've been on social media for years, like, and I still have to remind myself when I get overwhelmed from it. Take a step back. That's not real life. That's people's highlight reel. It's not a bad thing to remind yourself once in a while, but I completely agree. I remember even back when people started really posting pictures on the internet, albums on Facebook, I would get like jealous. I had
100%.
jealousy. It increased the amount of jealousy I felt in my day-to-day life across the board, even subconsciously.
Yeah.
Because you look at something for a second and you go, oh, I wish I had that. I wish I looked like that. I wish my hair would do that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wish my skin was that
I
clear.
wish my friends would do this for me. I wish my spouse would do this. I wish my parents would do this. Like it stems in so many different ways that you just feel like comparison and less than to, again, like we said, maybe someone's highlight reel. And also, do we want everyone coming up here and bitching about their entire lives and spewing all that either? Like, it's like I don't want that either necessarily, but there's got to be some real talk and some balance, which is that's why I love you so much, is because you're always being honest about it, right? And I think that's what we've talked about. We both really appreciate about each other is the authenticity of it, right? And that's why I wanted to talk to you about this, because I know you are honest about it. Be like, please don't compare yourself to where I am here, right? Like I remember Brie was like, "Oh, do you want to come work out with us?" And I was like, "Ha, you guys are doing legs. No, that's cute. I'm not there yet." Like I've been, but it's not a bad thing. Like you guys inspire me, and it's amazing. But we all have our own places where we're like, "Well, I'm not that strong there, and it's okay." Like it's hard to
Yeah,
not compare.
and I think that's like something about bodybuilding, and like a bodybuilding community is gonna come for me, because if you come for bodybuilding, it's like, oh my gosh. But
Not in 2025. Fuck that. This is not. We're being real about
we're
bodybuilding.
changing it up.
Yeah. Yes.
I think it creates a really unhealthy mindset for what that like fitness can only be one thing. So then you see like bodybuilding's gotten very trendy, I feel, recently.
Yes.
Might just be the
Yes.
space I'm in, but I see it more and more than I ever did. And I think that's maybe not a good thing. Like, 'cause like the stage lane is not healthy, and that sort of like fixation on one kind of fitness is also not healthy. That damaged me a lot. It took me away from practices like yoga, where I get back to my body, walking, where I get back to nature. And I just was like, I need to be in the gym. I need to be regimented. These are the only things I can do. Can't go for a run if I train legs, because then I won't put muscle on my ass. Like it was so nonsensical that it actually became unhealthy.
Yes.
Like the
Yes.
thing that got me into health, it was paradoxically was the thing that made me the most unhealthy for a while.
Yes, that's what I mean. Because you get this obsession. It's like people don't understand. It's like you're replacing that addiction with another addiction, which is great. Yes, it's a healthier one, but if you don't check your behaviors, it can turn very toxic, right? Because it's like your fixation is just going from maybe a drug or drinking or whatever it is that you were trying to escape from into fitness, which can be good. But then you stumble into that whole world, which we can get down to, of like, steroids and all those kind of things, which again, like there's positives and negatives, but it's all about like informed consent and knowing who you are and your intentions with fitness. I think, I mean, you've talked that about like, what is your intention? If you're just going in there aesthetically, I feel like most people are going to be let down, because there's so much that has to go into being aesthetically pleasing on social media, if that's what you're going for, versus just like doing your own journey and getting healthy and trying to be better for yourself as you age. And I think in your I think from like 20 to 30, that's really the focus, is the aesthetic part, right? And I think that's maybe the time that it should be, right? Because it's more surface level life. You're just figuring out who you are. Like, I think it's good to have that. But then as you go into your 30s, you're kind of like, well, what is good for my health, mentally, physically, spiritually? And I think that's where you're kind of coming to right now, right? Where you're like, I want to get back to that balance and be able to do all things, not just train at the gym 7 days a week. I think that's like the flow that you have to go through.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's funny. It's one of my goals for 2025 is whole body health. Like
Yes.
not just aesthetics, like more red meat and eggs in the morning, less 50 calorie ingredients with 50 ingredients, and more like higher calorie foods that are one whole food. Like this is
Yeah.
what I'm interested in now.
Yes.
And I think if I didn't go through those really kind of tough times with fitness, with my relationship with self, I might not have gotten there. I think sometimes the hardest things we go through teach us the most important lessons, unfortunately. I
Yes.
wish that
We
wasn't the
hate it.
case, but
We hate it, but
we hate it, but
but we're here.
it is the
Yeah.
truth. And
Totally.
I actually hope that I can only hope that that becomes trendy. I hope
Hmm.
that we step away from the leanness and we come back to ourselves a little bit and who we are as people
Yes.
and stop glamorizing looking fake. Well, otherwise
Yes.
we're all gonna wake up one day and look the same, and that's not fun. I
It's
don't want that.
not. And my biggest thing to everyone that follows trends, especially with looks and stuff, is like, look at eyebrows. Okay. Like, I grew up in the 90s. Like, the idea was to have the thinnest brows that they almost didn't exist. And look at how many women these days now have to, no offense, some that have to get microblading, but then try to get microblading to get bigger ones. Like, the trends are always going to change. What's popular is always going to change. I think and maybe not, and here I'll take a shot at the fitness industry here. Maybe if it's not working for you, it's because you're not aligned and it's not actually what you want to do. You're doing it because it's trendy. And I feel like since the pandemic, it was like, okay, I get it. Everyone's trying to find ways to make money outside of other businesses. They want to start their own businesses. And I am sure that majority of people get into it wanting to help people. But I don't think people take it serious enough. And we've had this conversation before. You can't just do a weekend course and all of a sudden, or do a show and all of a sudden take people's hormones and their health in your hands, right? And I think this is what we were talking about before, it becoming trendy and popular, and competitions becoming popular and trendy because they're seeing how much attention it gets on social media. I'm not gonna lie, I have many times in my life where I've been like, wow, people do get lots of love and support by bodybuilding. Maybe I should do a show. And then I get off social media and I'm like, B, you just, as you're turning 40, are like super proud of your body. And to your point, doing a whole bunch of fitness and other things outside of the gym. Why would you go backwards and put yourself on a stage? You know, that's not what you want to do. But because it's so popular in social media, a lot of my girlfriends do it. That's no shade to you guys. I'm like, and I'm like, and people be like, "Oh, you have such a good personality for the stage." Like, and true, I think I would. I do have the sass. I do have, yeah, but I don't have I'm a true stoner. I like my snacks at nighttime. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not aligned for me, and it wouldn't be doing it for me. I'd be doing it for social media. And unfortunately, I feel like a lot of people aren't there to understanding that that's why they're doing it too. Is that fair to say?
No, it's so fair to say, and the trendy thing makes it dangerous. And I think you and I could go down this rabbit hole,
We
like, because
can.
it's actually so it goes so much deeper to me. There's like regulation for all the wrong things in health and
Yes.
fitness, and no regulation for all the things that need it. And this takes me down to like right to the political basis and back up to fitness. Like they need to stop putting chemicals in food and like marketing Ozempic and being like, eat
Oh,
whatever you want, take this drug, get in shape the easy way. And they need to start promoting health and regulating things like fitness coaches.
yes.
Because this is my issue. There's these a lot of these fitness coaches online don't have insurance, like
Mm-mm.
not that I've heard of, right?
Nope.
And you're selling this product, you're saying, let me handle your health. You don't know, and like, I want to preface this by saying there is amazing
Hmm.
coaches. There's amazing coaches,
Totally.
but there's more not amazing coaches because there's these 8-week classes and there's this whole industry that's been built up around coaching that is like toxic and it's just taking young girls and young men's health and saying, let me make you a 16-week challenge and I'm going to use your transformation to sell more products. I don't care what happens to you after.
Mm-mm.
I don't care about your body, but I
Yeah.
want to sell more products. And so this is like, we need to start having these conversations so that people going into this space can understand like what the risks are. Do your research and you don't need a coach anymore. I hate to say this. This is like, oh, the coaches are going to come for me, but like there's so much available online. And yes,
Yes.
maybe reaching out to like a mentor, hiring someone who can help you sift through some of it.
Yeah.
But you don't need a coach to be healthy. You don't need someone to tell you what your body looks like.
No, no. And I think accountability, like, I think, accountability is the thing, because some people need it. And, and there's lots to sift through, like you said, but to sit there, if a coach is telling you that pretty much you're never going to be able to get away from them, like that's a red flag. And I think that's to your point, like there's just so many red flags out there. And I guess it comes all the way back to informed consent through all of it. When you're hiring a coach, knowing who to hire and if you're going to and what they're going to do, and then knowing too, like how many girlies do you know that started doing steroids and had side effects that maybe they didn't understand, and that's not talked about. That is one thing that is not talked about that I think breeds the most body dysmorphia in the fitness industry for women specifically, is a lack of understanding how many women do or have taken supplements or gear or steroids that aren't just over the counter things that women don't talk about. And I'm not shading people for doing it. You want to do it, do whatever the fuck you want as long as you're informed. But please don't sell programs and your body saying that just take my, to your point, 16-week program to look like me, when you're taking Anavar or you're taking growth hormone. Again, you are free to do all of those things. Your body, your fucking choice. I'm full belief of that. But when you're selling an ideal, that's the line. Like I'm kind of like Goob, where it's like you edit your photos. Like that's irresponsible, and it's causing so much more body dysmorphia than it's not, in my opinion. I don't care if I'm canceled for that one.
I love boob. I know, I think you're
He's the best.
completely correct, dude, because like a lot of there's no age limit to be on social media. Like you and I are older adults now. We can kind of see through bullshit that is some of the fitness industry, but like I don't blame young 21-year-olds, 18-year-olds for not knowing how to sift through that, because I didn't. When I was that age, I didn't have to sift through this much of it. I didn't have to sit there and like, it's crazy the things that get demonized. I hate seeing the lack of awareness too for like socioeconomic impact in the fitness industry. Like to me, it's tone deaf to tell people like, oh my gosh, you have acne because you're drinking tap water. Like we live in a country where we have access to tap water. I think that's
Yeah.
phenomenal. I
Yeah.
think that like, I think that's great. And it's usually people saying this who are pumped full of filler,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
like you're worried about the tap water. Are we
Yes.
worried about
The right
what are we
things.
really worried about here?
Yeah. 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 It's fake. It's all, and that's what it is. It's not being authentic. It's like I said, selling something. Look at this aesthetic. Look at this. Look at, I'm all natural. Follow me and all these things. And I have a problem with that. Like, that is one of the biggest things that I struggle with. Like, and I have to work through. It's like, oh, naturopathic people, gut, like we talk about gut health people. And with all due respect, some of the stuff that you're choosing, like filler and Botox and all that stuff, is like actual like toxins that have been known to do some not good things. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do those things. It just seems very disconnected, right? So it's just like I struggle to take advice from people that don't have that connection. And I'm not judging. I'm just saying, we know that those things disrupt our nervous system. We know that that then does with our mental health. But then you're selling this like, we'll go into this like, I guess what I think too is that the fitness industry is now turned into an MLM, is what it feels like, right? It's like you can just buy in, and then all of a sudden you're a service provider and you have all the answers, and your products are now the products that are going to solve all of your problems, and you have the answers to everything. And I think that's just so much red flags, right? So I think that's what my biggest red flag of the fitness industry is like, I know everything, I've got the answers. But it's not copy and paste, and it's very dangerous when people act copy and paste, because it comes down to hormones. And we've talked about this before, right? Like, outside of body dysmorphia, how does that physically fuck you up, right? Like, and then that
Well,
then fucks your body dysmorphia up even more, because you're like, I want to do these things, but it's actually hurting my insides, but I want the outside to look good. And if you know what I mean, is that fair to say too?
oh, 100%. It's a downward spiral. I think, for me, I can speak from personal experience. After my bodybuilding show, I
Mm-hmm.
was so, so depleted. And you know what? I had good coaches. I had the right people in my corner. Um, but it was still hugely impacted. And my levels after my bodybuilding show were so low that like I had lost my cycle.
Mm-hmm.
My mental health was destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
It was a complete mess. I was crying. I went in the bathroom. My bodybuilding show was about 4 days before Thanksgiving, so I was allowed to have a big Thanksgiving dinner. And yay, sort of, but when
Yeah.
you come back from that, it makes you so ill. So
Yeah.
my body was so not used to the sugars that I the pie tasted like drugs. I literally went into the bathroom with the pie, shut the door, and ate the whole thing. I was never a binge eater.
Yeah.
That was a binge eating moment,
Moment.
and
Yeah.
I couldn't stop. I was crying. I was crying, and I still wouldn't stop. My body was so depleted from being in starvation mode that it was like, no, if you don't eat this, you'll die. It was
Mhm.
literally how my naturopath explained it to me because I was very lucky, having a decent job. I was able to go see a naturopath and get some feedback. My estrogen, gone.
Mm.
Progesterone, gone. Thyroid, toast.
Yeah.
And that was one bodybuilding show. One. And I can't imagine going back to back to back what that would do because I can tell you that after that, it took 1 year not really training hard, not doing a lot of cardio, eating in a caloric surplus. I hated my body. I'd just seen my body at like
The
peak
leanest.
shredded. I'd
Yeah.
never been more praised by people online. And then that goes away. Nobody's like, in fact, it's the opposite. Oh, you've put on weight. Oh, you got
Oh, your
big.
mouth
Oh,
sizzling.
even that. And I love bodybuilding for the grit,
Mm.
but I have a complicated relationship with it now. Because I've
Totally.
done one show, people will be like, oh, you can't speak on it. I think it's not necessarily about how many shows you've done and what you can see in the industry. And I think that there's a lot of risk in bodybuilding, and it's not your typical sports risk. It's not like concussion in football or soccer or, skating injury in
Mhm.
hockey. A lot of the risk comes from like the fact that you're going up there to be judged on your appearance.
And your
You are being
skivvies.
half naked, man.
Yeah, like, do you guys all bleach your assholes? Just kidding, just kidding, just kidding. I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
No, they're very tan.
That's true. You don't have to worry about it. You don't want them light. You want them dark. That helps with the down. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Good to know. Getting
Right?
confused.
Now you know everything. But
Good.
it's risky. Like
Yeah.
even myself, having not grown up with a bad foundation, to be read that scorecard and be like, oh, your legs could be bigger, you need to be leaner,
Especially with
height, and
you and your legs, right? Like that was the
it's
one thing
work.
that you're like, hey, I think I got this in the bag, right? And you're just like, what the fuck? What are you talking about?
Yeah, the words leaner, tighter, feminine. It's weird to see that about your body. So I think it's something that needs to be explained whenever someone says like, I want to compete. Like,
Mhm.
okay, what is your background with your mental health around dieting? And
Mhm.
to say everybody has body dysmorphia. I don't care what anybody says. Everybody has it. Maybe not every day, but once in a while.
100%.
But there are some people who I don't think could compete in bodybuilding. Like if you've had an active eating disorder, I think it would be pragmatic of a coach to say, I don't think this is the right approach for you.
Mhm.
And instead of having an aesthetic goal, let's, like you said, have a strength goal.
Yes.
That's been really helpful for me in recovering from like the desire to be lean. I'll set like, what, I want to be able to deadlift three
Yes.
plates, and
You
then
live
I focus
it.
less. Exactly. And then I chase that goal.
Yeah.
And naturally, if you're chasing those kind of goals and you're chasing strength and mental stability, I can almost promise you,
The
the body
aesthetic will
follows the
come.
mind.
100%. 100%. And
Body
even if it,
follows the mind.
even you get to that point where like, I don't fucking care. You know what I mean? Like, and that's why I had to take a step back because it was just like my body actually has reacted better training 3 to 4 days a week and doing boxing, doing, balancing, doing like the cardio in my basement and doing all the other things, like you said, more functional fitness, like doing all that, not just going to the gym. My body actually responds so much better because it actually has time to relax. It's using other systems, and I think that's so important. And it's so, I feel like for me, what steered me away from bodybuilding is, which some people love it and it can be toxic, is the roboticness of it, right? Like especially with my life right now, like my spouse is gone 2 weeks, he's home 1 week. Like to be able to then do something that's so robotic that would take time from when he comes home from me is not something I'm interested in. And for me, I was just like, I kind of almost feel blessed that I had such body dysmorphia at the time that I was getting pressured to go on stage, because I think it would have destroyed me even more. Because like you said, it's like I almost feel like there should be like a maybe we should develop this. Okay, here's a good idea. Fuck you guys. You can't do this. This is me and Darrian's idea. So we're going to develop like a little school, and it'll be like pre-show school. And we'll just have people show up in their bras and underwears the way they are. And we're just going to judge them. and just throw a bunch of judgment at them. And if they can't walk away from that and mentally go through that, you don't get to compete. Because you know what I'm saying? Because it's like, if you can't handle just what a peer is saying about your body where it is right now, you're not going to be able to be handled being judged around other women and men in all different sizes, ages, categories, like doing it for years, not doing it for years, on gear, not on gear, if you can't just handle criticism from your peers. And I'm not trying to be rude, but I see a lot of people not being able to handle criticism from their peers, but yet they go on stage. And in my mind, I'm just like, you can't even emotionally regulate strangers. How are you going to emotionally regulate the top and the very political judgment and competitions? Because to me, most people have said it's political when you get higher up, and it's like, that shouldn't even be what it's about. Like, what are you fucking talking about?
I think I've definitely heard it's political higher up too. I mean, you hear things, but honestly, I don't know if have you ever watched like a bodybuilding show start to finish?
Yes, not in real life, but online, yeah. For the
Yeah,
most part,
you
I
know,
did the boys, like, no offense, but like I watched it for the girls to see if, like, is this something that I could do, right? And I was just like, I just couldn't. Can barely go to the beach in my bathing suit sometimes. That's just my journey. That's not everyone's. I
well,
understand that.
I find when I'm watching it, as someone who, thinks most people are beautiful, I'm actually like struggling sometimes, especially at a regional level, to see the actual difference.
Fair.
I'm like,
I just feel like a
what are
judgmental
we,
bitch, but then I'm like, but
yeah,
you're on
I'm like,
stage to be judged, so you're like, this makes me uncomfortable.
it's a weird thing. And I remember when I did my show, a lot of the feedback I got was, and I hate even saying this, but like, oh, she's the only one who showed up. Like she was the only one who was gonna win, like
Yeah,
kind of thing. And it it was sort of because I competed it in a natural show, and I was natural. I've always been natural. I don't
fuck with
cross my
it.
heart, hope to die. I haven't used anything. Um, but it was almost the way people were talking about it. It was like, oh, those other girls shouldn't have been up there. It wasn't fair for you because you didn't have any real competition, kind of thing. And like at the time, I was just so excited that I won.
Yes, of
But I
course.
look back at those photos now and like every single one of us up there looked stunning, beautiful. Like, how are you gonna choose? Like we all look great. And I get it, it's hardcore, it's a sport, but controversial take. And actually I listen to the Real Bodybuilding podcast all the time because I'm a bro.
Yes.
And Fuad Abiad is like the host or whatever, and he says this all the time. Bodybuilding doesn't really take skill,
Mm,
and everybody gets on him for it. And he's a bodybuilder. He was a pro bodybuilder, but it doesn't really take skill. It's not like hockey
yeah.
where you play your whole life and master it. It's not like football where you play in high school, you play in college, you draft it. It's eating
Mm.
and then going to the gym and resting.
It's being
And you
disciplined.
can it's being disciplined, but it's not a
Yeah.
skill.
No. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like really a fun sport to watch, right? So it doesn't have a lot of money around it because there's a level of narcissism. Like, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, but the only people who go to bodybuilding shows are people's friends and family.
Yes. Yes.
They buy
Yes.
$50 ticket.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't
Or if
see
you're
people in
into it,
Kelowna.
no.
Yeah, the bodybuilding shows in Kelowna. You don't see people at
No.
craft like, oh, getting a lunch before we head to watch the bodybuilding show. Like,
Yeah, no. You're going
no,
in to
nobody
support
does
your
that.
friends for sure. Yeah, because
Yeah,
and
so
two,
to
everything's online too. So it's like, I could just watch it online and not pay the money. Like, and it's usually, like, no offense, like a decent amount. Like, it's not like $20. Like, okay, maybe I'll go on for $20, but you have to really like the person, because sometimes they're like 50, $60, and you're like, that's like
yeah,
a concert ticket. I don't know about that.
and it's like a 10-hour day.
It's a long
Like
day.
you go on stage in the morning and then
Wait
you go on
forever.
stage later at night.
Mm,
And then, so to me, I think what I've taken from it and why I like it is like, I like to challenge myself. And I've developed a very healthy relationship with I am only in competition with me. And
totally.
I think if you take that mindset into bodybuilding, it can be really positive. Because if you
Yes.
go into it saying, I'm going there to beat myself, I want to look better than I did at my last show, I want to see my hard work, I want to be disciplined and regimented. But you're not going in there looking for that placing, and you're not going in there because you're like, I'm going to win this show, and then I'm going
I'm
to be
better
a
than
coach,
everyone.
and I'm going to make $10,000 a month, everybody's going to be my best friend. Like those
Yeah.
are not the right reasons. And I think it just comes back to like, as you get older, I think it's easier, but find your why in
Yes.
everything you do. Why are you doing fitness? I had the wrong why when I did my first bodybuilding show. I had lost a bunch of weight and I had been overweight for a while, unbeknownst to me.
Yeah.
Looking back at pictures, I'm like, oh wow, actually I was overweight. But
Ah,
I
but
had
that's
lost a bunch
great
of weight and
though.
I'd
Like at least it wasn't like a time that you look back and you're like, that's a sore time because you were super uncomfortable, right? So that's at least a positive.
yeah, it's funny. I had the most confidence in my life before I started bodybuilding. I
That's
was not self-conscious until I
same.
got lean, which is so weird. And it's because then I was more aware of when the comments were coming in and stopping. I
Exactly.
was
See,
like,
the positive ones where people think it's good and I'm not, and I struggle too, and I'll say it too, because obviously you want to hype up your friends, of course, but
yes,
like, there is, I think having a balanced comments, being like, oh my gosh, you're so strong, or like, I say I want to be strong like you, I want to grow up to be like you, and you look great, but then balancing with being like, you're smart and you're funny, and like making sure that when you're complimenting your friends, you're complimenting them on a, full 3D basis, not just like, oh my god, you have abs and that's that, right? Like it's great, it's meant with positive intentions, but it very much can have a negative effect. Very
yeah,
much.
especially when you've never had it and then it's like
Oh,
it's
so
very
much.
like it's intoxicating. Like
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what anyone says. I it is.
Yes.
It's just cool. It
Yes.
feels great. Like
Yes.
being loved feels great. Sue us. Like
Yes. Well, no, and that's human nature, right? Like you want to be accepted by the tribe, because back in the day when there was tribes and we all really relied on each other and community to make things happen, we didn't have as much ease and, privilege of access of everything. Now you really did rely on the community. So public court of public opinion really did matter, because if you pissed off the person you're getting your milk from and you never got milk again, that's more of a problem than now you could just go to the grocery store, right? So by nature and by generations, we've been passed down to want to be accepted by society, and that's a big thing that Dr. Amanda Brown talks about in her book that I've had on the show, about the obsession with bigger breasts, right? Like why do women try to get bigger breasts? It's because, well, that's what's accepted in society, so many women want to have that to be accepted, at least in that area, right? So it's very common for us to see that we're being accepted, that feels good, we're less likely going to be ousted. And we can be that, tie it back to childhood trauma if you were a loser in high school or something, or you got rejected. Like, I think I was like friends with everyone, but then I also got picked on, so it was like a weird, so coming now as an adult, I see that, where I tried to, as I've tried to get validation from other people and see, well, it's because I was lacking that as a kid, so we stopped that. But bodybuilding, you're literally getting validations from judges on deciding who gets the trophy. So it's like, of course, if you don't have that emotional regulation, that's going to go out of control.
like the breast implants thing in bodybuilding is huge. I remember like my
Huge.
first show, someone asked me like, "Oh, do you think you'll get implants now?" And I was so confused because I was like, "How am I going to work out with big tits? Like, where am I going to put?" And
Why
then
is that so
and then
normal to ask? That is not a little procedure.
well, okay, and here's the crazy thing. It's because in bodybuilding, and like, if there's any judges who ever listen to this and I'm wrong, correct me, but like women with bigger breasts are usually scored higher because it is based on femininity.
Yes.
So they say it's, you have a higher chance
Please,
of
yeah.
winning a show. And there's certain like to me, I don't think bodybuilding is nearly important enough for me to ever put my body in that kind of risk or state of stress for a plastic trophy. And you don't make enough money in bodybuilding. You just don't. You have to have a real job because I don't want, I just like, I'm so sick of everybody monetizing their passion. Like, can we all just have fun?
Can we just have
Stop
fun?
monetizing it. Can we
Yes.
just have fun? Like,
Yes.
I don't want to make money off my passion. I go to the gym because I love being a strong girl. I love being
Yes.
strong. I love being, that's how I spend time with my man. It's for my health. I don't go anymore because I want to be the smallest in the room.
Mm-mm.
And to be honest, if it gets you in the gym and it gets you to learn about yourself, fine. But I just pray that every woman eventually learns that, like, your body is going to change, it's going to have
Mm-hmm.
seasons. Focus on health, and then there's no issue. Because
Yes.
but this is where the conversation too is like so nuanced because listen, I love body positivity, but there's also
A
the
level.
risk of I'm sure you've seen it like online, there's a lot of like romanticizing obesity.
Yes.
And that's terrifying too.
Yes.
It's
Yep.
it's
It's
that's
not
alarming and it
positive. When there's medical, I think I think the line is when there's medical implications to whatever body positivity, that's where the line is drawn, right? So whether that's in the bigger realm now where it's like, I don't believe that people in bigger bodies never should be treated poorly because of that. So I understand the need for that body positivity for all bodies to be accepted. And we should have, try to have more inclusion. But again, just like most things, the pendulum has swung so far in the other side to your point where there's feederism, where people get off on killing people by feeding them so much. And, there's, mukbangs where, yeah, that's a whole thing. That's a whole sexual thing is feederism. And they get off on killing people by feeding them so much. It's legitimately a thing. I've talked about it on the show before. It's terrifying. Yeah. So it's again, like, where are those lines, right? And then even to like we just talked about with bodybuilding, I'm sure you know tons of people that have run an excess amount of gear. I know one girl a couple years ago I've talked to, she was on like 1,000 calorie diet. She was in figure and she was running more gear than most men run. And this is for months on end. And so I think too, one of the biggest things is like be informed about where you're at with your body dysmorphia and what coach you're going to be in the hands of, because that could be very dangerous for yourself if you have no understanding of what steroids can do or dieting to that extreme can do for your hormones, right? Like, I think most people can say 1,000 calorie diet is for someone who's maybe going through surgery and is trying to heal their guts. I don't know what person in the world should be eating only 1,000 calories, especially taking gear and running in a figure competition. That's wild.
That's a death sentence. Long term, that's a death sentence.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of come out and say it. And like I was lean as heck. Like I was lean as heck, and this is why I say I was lucky I had good coaches because my calories, the lowest they got, I think was like still over 1400.
Mm-hmm.
Like I had a lot of cardio, but
Mm-hmm.
like my coaches didn't let me diet right away. They made me do a reverse diet to build up my calories so I had something to go off of. I was lucky and I still got
Oh,
like screwed
yeah.
in my health.
Yeah.
So like that like, I can't even imagine if I had a coach who was like driving me down like sub 800 calories. I actually follow a girl who had that happen, and the week before her show, she ended up so sick. She couldn't even compete. She
Mm-hmm.
switched coaches and he looked at her plan and was like, "You poor thing, I'm not letting you compete for like a couple of years. Like, we need to fix you."
Mm-hmm.
So then, like, her dream is not only pushed back because she hired the wrong person, she's out probably way more money than the person was worth. Health is in the tank, and now you're paying somebody else to fix somebody else's mistakes.
Yes. Yes.
And that's, Jesus, it's like, there needs to be regulation on like
Mm-hmm.
some of the coaching stuff, especially coaches offering certain services. Like
Yes.
I think that if you're, I have a really good friend who's like a coach I really admire. She doesn't work with people. She basically says like, I'm not a coach who's going to give you macros.
Mm-hmm.
That's not me.
Yep.
I'm not going to give you a meal plan.
Nope.
I'll train you in the gym.
Yep.
I'll help you work on your mindset and I'll teach you healthy habits. But I'm
Yes.
not, if you're coming to a coach to get you to count calories, I'm not your coach.
Yeah. I
And
fully get that.
I love that.
Yes.
And I'm shocked more people don't have that approach. And she gets flack sometimes because, where's all your transformations? And she makes like posts and she's like, I don't post transformations because like I'm not here to sell a transformation of someone's body. I want them to feel better in their life. And there's no before and after
There's no
picture
measure
of
to
that.
that. There's none. And there's really not. And I think that's for me. Like I stopped posting as much because I was like, you can't see it as much, but everything that's changing in me the last couple of years is not my physical body, or that you can see that's measurable. It's like, of course I got stronger, but it's like, oh, I did boxing this year and now I'm getting faster at boxing. I stepped out of my comfort zone, right? Like, teaching cardio classes and teaching my other girlfriends how to do different things. And, and I just think, and like, I don't know, I feel like your point of it's bred into this trendy fitness thing where people don't care and they take it lightly and they're putting people at jeopardy because they don't have full understanding that even eating incorrectly and at that low calorie can fuck up your hormones. And without that understanding and people just take a weekend course, I'll even say it myself. I did the CanFit Pro like personal not personal training, like the group training course. I've done it twice. And I took that over the weekend and I was like, okay, so you can go do the personal training one. I think it's like 1 or 2 weekends, and then all of a sudden you could just take someone, like helping somebody at the gym, giving them guidance to eating better things is different than giving them a full program to follow, eating steroids supplements, all those things. Like those are two different levels. And I think that there needs to be like a glass door for fitness trainers and coaches where people can go and share their experiences of stuff like this, so you know who to go through, good or bad, because it's very dangerous. And back to the whole point is, you cannot have body dysmorphia and then you could get a really bad coach and then all of a sudden have it. You could have a great growing up and all of a sudden go on social media and try and get in the fitness space and then start comparing yourself and develop body dysmorphia, right? So it's like being informed of competing if you're going into it, fitness if you're going into it, the gym. I think all those things are super important so that you're mentally prepared for the comparison that's going to naturally happen with yourself or with other people, positive or negative. Um, but
Yeah,
is there any advice that you have for like the mental aspect? Because I know like you've obviously come on to another side of it. What are the things that you do besides setting strength goals to help yourself combat those negative like body talks? Because like we all love you, and you were like, I'll idolize you in a way for your fitness, and I think that that's amazing, but it's also stressful at the same time.
think for me, a lot of it's been like the people I surround myself. I like with you and like our other friends, we have a lot of the same friends. I feel like I can actually shut off and I'm not, my life feels like a highlight reel when I'm around those people now. So I'm not comparing it as much. I also think part of this, and to younger girls listening, I promise a lot of it comes with growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Like you start to navigate things as you grow up and you meet better people, and you think it does take hard lessons sometimes. But me personally, I would say to anyone looking to hire a coach, these are the things I would do.
Mm-hmm.
Have they ever been coached? It's important. Can they be coached? Are they coachable? Who's been their coaches? Because much like any other leadership, they're going to have taken techniques, probably nuanced things from that coach. So do you like who coached them? What are their qualifications? Is it simply an ISSA cert,
Mm-hmm.
or have they been to a university? Like, do they
Yeah.
have a health and science degree? That's great. Like, do they have awesome, phenomenal? Do they have references? Talk to their other clients. Females hiring male coaches, I would urge you to talk to other female clients, not just their male clients.
Mm-hmm.
There is some toxic things in the bodybuilding industry as far as like I think female male coaching relationships. There's just some even toxic female female relationships for just like
Mm-hmm.
catty women, but for females listening, like be careful hiring a male coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my advice.
Yeah. Well, and too, like,
Um,
I just feel like, yes, there's a lot that are knowledgeable, but there's just a difference in understanding. Like, sometimes you can go to like a chiropractor and they're going to crack your body, right? But like having a coach, because there's so much mindset and because we go through different cycles, unless it's a guy that, predominantly, if you're buying like a program, like a copy paste, one thing, but if you're getting to the nitty gritty, like you're sending them pictures,
Pictures, yeah.
they're involved in your life like hormonally and a very very controlled. I think, yeah, we've heard stories.
Yeah, it's very important to protect yourself in
Yes.
this, and set up a consult call, talk to them, ask if you align, ask what their techniques are like, ask if you can see their interface, some of their meal plan samples. Don't go in blind. And if a coach is messaging you nonstop trying to pressure you, walk the hell away because that means they need you more than you need them.
Yes, red
A,
flag.
a coach who has a well-organized business is not chasing clients.
They're not.
So
Number one.
the other thing I would suggest for people is unfollow accounts that you find yourself comparing yourself to. I used to follow a ton of pro bodybuilders. I used to follow a ton of models. I unfollowed, I think I follow 300 people now. They're mostly friends, some quotes, dog videos. But your social media, like we always say, it is an algorithm. You can
Mhm.
choose. There's this excellent feature on Instagram where you can go see less like this. And I use that all the time for when I get like Instagram has like porn on it.
Oh my
And
god.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that's probably causing some body dysmorphia too. But like I always go see less like this because go off, shorty, get your bag, you kill it. But like
I don't want to
I'm
see
on
it.
there to connect with my friends, and it can be a creative space. So I think taking control of the spaces you're in. You don't have to
Yeah.
demonize one thing, but take control of it. And don't, if you find yourself that there's this one girl who posts things all the time and you're like, God, I just want to be here, unfollow it. I guarantee you so quickly some of my stresses went away because I
Yes.
forgot those people existed.
And mute's a very good option as well if you're like, I don't really fully want to unfollow this person, but we're not really
Yes.
aligned right now, and I don't want to, because sometimes that matters. Some people do notice, right? I think like big creators, they don't fucking pay attention, but let's just say someone in your personal life right now is maybe going through where it's like clear that they're having some toxic issues in fitness, right? Like, and they're just doing some
Hmm.
things that are maybe not helping you. You can just mute their stories, mute their posts for a little bit, and just take a step back if it's not adding to your life. If it's only adding stress to your life, then definitely I think
So
that's
true.
so important, because whether we want to or not, like we said, by nature we compare. So if you're always having that and it's not motivating you like a vision board, if it's not like a Pinterest, if it's all these models and bikini, like that's what I was doing for the longest time. Like, I'm going to follow these because they're going to be motivational. And I was
Yeah.
actually being like, it's not motivational. So I started following, no offense, like more muscly girlies or more powerlifting girlies or girlies that were doing corporate stuff or like stuff outside of fitness. And then it was like, that content wasn't there for me to subconsciously compare anymore, even if I
Yeah.
wasn't
It's so
consciously doing
important.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about social media too, is you can just literally like turn features off. Like,
We don't
yes,
think
it can be
about that.
toxic, but right? You can just turn stuff off
There's
on it. And that's
boundaries.
been the biggest lesson for me of 2024 is like it's all
Totally.
my stuff. It's my page, it's my body, it's my ideas, it's my brain. Like I want it to be my ideas. And I love that we have a friend group where we're
Yes.
all on the same page with that. We love each other for there's no judgment. It's like you do you. Be real, babe. Like that's
Be
exactly what it
real.
is. We love
Yes.
each other for that. And I
The
think that's huge.
messiness
Like
too.
check your circles.
Yeah.
Yeah, check your circles, check your why, if you're going into something because you're like purely aesthetic, I urge you to be like, okay, is there another reason? Could
Mm-hmm.
I look at this from another point of view?
Mm-hmm.
And and remember that everybody has things they're insecure about too.
Yes.
Even those pretty girls on the
Oh
internet.
my God. I'd say they almost have it more, right? Like, one thing too, like to put to your point where you're saying you didn't notice about the body dysmorphia until people started positive. It wasn't because people were negatively commenting. It was because it was positive. And I feel like that's what I've had and I wouldn't even just say body, like say like now we talk about face dysmorphia, right? When we talk about people doing fillers and Botox, like that's outside of your body, because you could have like you see girly, especially, no offense, in the fitness place too, because they're trying to also make their face look young and fresh, right? And as young as their bodies do. So like there's so much going on. Oh my gosh. That, I just think I just lost my train of thought there, thinking about all the Botox and fillers and how different that is now versus from when I was coming up in the fitness industry. Like,
Oh, it's
um, it
crazy.
is crazy. And so it's like you get all these people that didn't know that they had a problem. Society tells them, like, I knew I had small boobs, but like I had a guy once on social media tell me I was disappointing for not having big boobs. And I really didn't understand that. And I was like, I'm clearly getting married to somebody else. How does this, like, oh, I don't even know where I was going with that. But people's opinion, social media, all those things, good or, oh, I think I was trying to think with the positive stuff, like how that actually develops bad habits too. And that's where my whole life, it's like, oh, you're so pretty, or you're so skinny, you're so small. Like, oh, you have pretty privilege, you have this, and like, okay, sure, there's definitely where people will have biases because of how you look. Fair. I will give that credit. That's not talked about. But there's also the other side of that, like pretty privilege, where people hold you to a standard and then therefore think that you can't have any feelings because they think you're pretty, or you can't have body dysmorphia. So for me, it was just like people be like, oh my God, I want to be so thin like you. Meanwhile, I'm teaching classes and super sick and not something that someone should be. And I'm like, you should not be looking up to me. This is super toxic behavior. You're commenting on me saying that this amazing thing and you want to be me. Meanwhile, I hate myself. Like, it's such a toxic thing when people think it's a good thing and just like, oh, you're so skinny, you're so, it's like, I don't think that way. So do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's such a
I
weird.
totally do. It's like it impacts you when just like commenting on people's bodies in any way can
It's damaging.
be it's damaging. It's like you don't know what someone's going through in their own head, and like the face dysmorphia is crazy too because in the body industry, bodybuilding industry, I think you see a lot of people who use gear, right? Gear can
Hmm.
have a very negative impact
On your
on skin
face.
health.
Yep.
And then you go get these like treatments, and then like we don't know the long-term side effects. And I have no issue with people who choose to get Botox. I don't look down on it. I don't. It's all up to you. You taught me about informed consent. And had I gotten it before I'd known what that was, I wouldn't have actually had informed consent.
Hmm.
And I don't think it's something I want to do. No, especially the thing that I find most interesting is the depersonalization.
Yes.
And I think we see that in bodies too. Like if
Hmm.
you take away your humanness and your like softness as a woman, I felt like confident lean because I knew I was shredded, but at the same time, I didn't feel like a woman anymore. I didn't have curves. I
Yeah.
felt I just didn't feel I had no sex drive
Yeah. Hmm.
anymore because I had no hormones.
Hmm.
So I can only imagine how much more warped I would have been if through that I started changing my face
Yes.
too. And then
Yes.
I don't know who I am.
Yes.
It's just I just think it's so important for like all women, men,
Anybody.
women and men to figure out who they are
Yes.
and and be relentlessly who you are.
Yeah.
Don't try and just fit into a mold because you never will.
Yep. Yep.
You're never gonna find the validation you're looking for from other people. That comes from within.
Yes.
And whether you choose to bodybuild or you choose to do yoga, just choose to be healthy and then like the rest is totally falls into place.
Yes. Yes. And one thing too I would like to talk about when it comes to like body dysmorphia in society, we are society, right? So if we don't want this, then we have to stop doing it, right? So if we sit there, this is one thing that confuses me. It's like, well, the patriarchy wants us to be these perfect lean body and all that. Okay, why we keep chasing it then? If we don't want, if we have these standards that are set and we don't like those standards, why are so many people chasing those standards? So is it society? We are society. It is us, right? So it's like if you are always going to constantly do what society and look outside of how you should be, you're always going to be chasing that. Society is always going to change. Like we just talked about trends, right? Like Nicole Richie's time, right? That's when, right when I was a teenager, when you had to be like Nicole Richie, Paris Hilton thin. That was in, right?
Oh,
And then now I'm glad body positivity came in. But now it's like the Tess Holidays and the people that are obese that, okay, maybe in your 20s, being extra, extra thick. And I'm not talking about like, I'm talking like obese, like hundreds and hundreds of pounds, can't move their body. Okay, maybe it's cute and funny when you're 20 in your 20s, but when you're 30s, that is going to have some health damages, right? So it's just like, it's finding the balance where it's just like any extreme is not good. Too thin, too large, too athletic, too, I think that's, and we come back to let's have the balance, right? Let's, we want to be looking good in a bathing suit. Sure, let's work for that. But don't sacrifice other things that make you happy or that's going to make you sick, like your mental health. I think that's my biggest thing. It's like you want to bodybuild and you want to do all that. Great. Is it breeding your body dysmorphia more? Yes, then maybe don't do that right now. Maybe make sure that you're mentally, emotionally can regulate and then go and do those things because then you're doing it with a proper intention. You and like especially you
yeah.
and Bree, that's what I love about the two of you is like when we get together, yes, we talk about bodybuilding, but that's not your entire identity, right? Where it's like we can talk about so much more and I sit there and cheer you guys on and we have this mutual understanding that that's not for me, you know and
Yeah.
that's totally okay, but you guys know I support the fuck out of you guys because I know that you're informed and more than ever both of you are in the best headspace you've ever been to do these shows. That's why I could be on board because I'm like, I know you guys are doing it for being like a bodybuilder and strength. You're not doing it for the social media likes. You're not doing it to get out of a business out of it, like it's not to look at me and show me. It's like, what can I do for myself in this disciplined area because you have informed, but so many people don't. And that's what I love though, because it's not your full identity. So to me, it's not a toxic behavior. It's not a toxic thing. And I think that's where people are like, oh, all bodybuilding's toxic. No, it's not. There's a lot of amazing things for it. It's individuals that are maybe in the right spaces at the right time, being led by the wrong people, all coming back to
Yeah.
informed consent of it's not easy. It's not cheap. It's not for the light heart. It's hard and it can be very damaging. So you have to be in a good space mentally with the right support system and it can be beautiful. But I think a lot of people
Yeah.
aren't real enough with themselves and just want it for inauthentic things. So that struggle, those sacrifices, the oh poor me victim, like I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be rude, but another bitch, anybody that bitches about being in a bodybuilding competition and like is woe is me, you are making that choice. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
honey, you paid the entry fee and it is high.
Exactly. Like you're doing
It
this to
is not
yourself.
cheap.
No. So like
It is,
just
yeah,
embrace
it's
it.
totally a choice.
That's what I mean,
Yeah,
right?
and
Embrace it.
that's what I think it is too. I have when I did my show, and like I think y- people could attest to this, like I was so excited to be doing it. I felt like that's really what I wanted to do at the time. I was stoked. I was posting like, yeah, I'm getting up at 4 in the morning, and like, yeah, I was tired, but I genuinely actually I
Love the
felt
grind.
pretty good about it. Yeah, I loved it. I think like I've seen firsthand how people can do something and really drag it out, and
Mm-hmm.
there's almost like praise in the suffering, and I just think we shouldn't be like praising suffering. Like I don't think we should have to suffer to feel proud of ourselves. I
Yes.
don't think your worth should be based on how much you're willing to suffer or
Sacrifice.
sacrifice.
Yes.
That seems like a
Such a
little
weird
out of,
flex.
yeah. And like even coming back to the body dysmorphia thing, like having, if you're someone struggling with body dysmorphia and then you're hanging out with someone who can only talk about calories and food and like that's damaging too. So it's like when I say check your circle, sometimes it can be really difficult to do that. Like it
Totally.
can be really difficult to look around and say, man, this person's poor relationship with themselves is like it's unfortunate, but
Mm-hmm.
now it's impacting me because I'll be the first to admit I've been in friendships where like I noticed myself fixating more on like food or body because
Mm-hmm.
like a friend is. And that's
Yes.
not to blame them, but
No.
you are susceptible to that and you are who you spend your time with. So I think that's important too, even though it's not easy. And that's where I
Yeah.
love your mute idea because maybe you're not ready to like have those hard conversations, but you should
Totally.
always protect yourself first.
Yeah, because it's not necessarily like I'm mad at that person. They're allowed to have whatever season that they had. They're going through it. I totally understand. But it's
Yeah.
bringing up things that I'm not ready to, or in a weird way, or like I'm just not for it. So I feel like muting is really good. And that's like for what they're doing, or maybe me. Maybe I'm going through a really rough time and they're having the best time of their life. And I'm so happy for them. But I can't emotionally regulate right now because I'm tired or I'm working more or whatever. And I don't want to take that out on them because that's not their fault. So maybe just being quiet for a little bit, just, and then you forget about it because it's not like, it's not in your forefront. And then you just kind of like, oh, and so I just think it's such a good, you just have to protect yourself emotionally in all the boundaries, whether that's online, in your friend circle, like, and that's just even to energy. Like we all know those energy suckers, and it is really hard. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't be able to talk about the hard things with your friends. That's totally different. There's totally difference when you're going through your friends and working things out to just being a negative Nelly all the time. And I personally just can't be around people that are, and I mean this in the kindest way, that are always just searching for their abs, and that is it. That's all that matters. They have no other things that they want to do in life. And I'm not saying you shouldn't exist or you aren't good people. I just don't want to have conversations about that because that's not what my goals are in life. My goals in life right now are how can I impact people around me? How can I build a community? How can we all help each other? How can we all make each other feel empowered? Not what is the cheapest meal or least meal that you have with the most protein that's going to cut the most calories? And I'm not disrespecting that, but I'm just not there. So that's not authentic to me, right? And so yeah, to your point, people that you're surrounding yourself with, not saying that you can't have bad moments and you can't share that, but if they're a continual energy sucker or they're continually focused on things that you're trying to work through, it's okay to not want to have the conversation with them because some people won't be receptive to it, but they don't need to
That's the
change.
truth.
You just leave them where they are and just like, cool. Like we've talked about that. Like people that talk about bodybuilding all the time, I just can't relate to. And that's okay because some people don't like talking about political stuff and that's okay too. I'm like, cool, let's just not talk, right? But it matters, and it matters also what you say inside your head too, right? So I'd say that that's a big place for you that you've work on is your mindset, right? So maybe we talk a little bit about that before we end the episode today. Is what are some key things that you can do to help that you do that help flip your mindset when it comes to these kind of negative conversations in your head?
Always working on it, but having a journal is really good for me. I like to talk things out written. Um, I also pray.
Mm-hmm.
Prayer is big for my mindset. It's maybe not for everyone. I think some people might not believe in God, but maybe have source or the
Mm-hmm.
universe, but having some this that is grounding. one thing I came to realize this year is that we're far too connected
Mm.
to everything. And it feels good to sometimes unplug and like stop thinking. I try to focus on my little community. And I like have pulled a lot of my thought away from the bigger things like, like bodybuilding or politics, things like that, because I'm finding that those things are so overwhelming. And if I just focus on my community and my health, those things help me stay in a good mindset. I've been trying to limit social media. I'm sure all of us have tried it once in a while. It does help.
It
Over the
does.
last 3 days, I was off Instagram quite a bit. Like I wasn't posting, I was just going to the gym. And I was like, wow,
What a difference.
wow, it feels good to be in your own world.
Yes.
So I think my word for 2025 is balance. I want to
Mm.
find a really good balance in my life. I want to live in harmony.
Mhm.
I and I always am working on mindset, but I think it's always a work in progress for people. And
Totally.
I think it's so important to remember you can think, oh, you know what? I've got it. I've got mindset down. I've got this. Keep working on it because literally everybody falls. I had
Hmm.
spent like all of last year, I was in this great routine, was regimented, and this year life came at me so
It
fast.
did.
And I had this like negative self-talk. I was like, oh, I'm so stupid and lazy, like I'm
Hmm.
out of routine. And I had to check myself and be like, no,
You're
this
in
is the
season.
season
Yeah.
that you're in. It doesn't make you less than, and you need to just lean into
Yeah.
that season that you're in. And it's been just constant, like, okay, check-ins with myself, check-ins with my friends. I've also done a housekeeping of my relationships this year,
Mhm.
and
It's
that's been
important.
really, really, really difficult.
Hmm.
And I know a lot of people might not be ready for that, and that's totally fine. But at some point in your life, having that housekeeping of your relationships
Hmm.
does help with mindset.
Yep.
And I heard something once that like has stuck with me. Is heard it years ago, and it was like before you wish that 5 to 10 extra pounds that you always hate away, remember that 5 to 10 pounds is dinners with your family. It's eating your little cousin's birthday cake. It's baking that pie with your grandma. Like you don't know how long you'll have left with her. That 5 to 10 pounds is the rest of your life. And
It
before
is.
you wish it away, consider what you might be wishing away with it.
Yeah. The memories, the moments, right? Maybe you were
Yeah, like
present and you skipped a meal because you were so focused in the moment you forgot to eat. And I know some people are like, oh my god, I can't believe you forgot to eat. I'm like, well, I'm so sorry, I was enjoying my time. Or like it's really like having, I think too, is like intention with what you're doing, right? Like being intentional with it, and making sure that you're doing things because, like you said, it's authentic to you and it feels aligned. And you'll know that when you get into a good mindset and with gratitude and being grateful for what you have and where you are now. We're always programmed to get more and always looking at the future. And I think coming back to reality and where I am now, and I think a lot of people, especially on their body journeys, are always like, oh, I want to get to here, I want to get to there. It's like, brother, look back and look at how far you've come as well, right? Whether that is physically or like, there's points where I couldn't do a push up. Okay, could never do a push up. I could like do pretty decent on chest at this point, like, maybe like 50, like 25, maybe 35 plates. I wasn't at my full plate like I am now, but I could do decent for chest, but a push up, hell no. And then the pandemic happened, and then everyone was tagging people in this like push up challenge. And I was like, oh fuck,
oh
oh fuck.
yeah.
And people that weren't even athletic of my friends were doing it. And I was like, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed. I can't do this. And then I just slowly started doing it. And I just was like, why are you embarrassed about this? You're not good at it. You've never done. So let's start from scratch. So I started at the beginning and I did like against the wall. And even though there are people that I knew that were, it's like, you really have to let go ego. And Grant was so cute. He was like, you can do it, babe. Like, I'll be beside you, push you, like, so it really, and then I was just so grateful that I was like in a place that I could do this around people that would push me, not where before where I'd be in a class where I'd be shamed for not being able to do a push up, right? Like, so coming back to like your mindset and your space, and now I can push out 12 no problem, right? So it's like, it's really important to come back to look to where you are. Now I'm just like, oh, I could almost like, I'm doing like a plate and like maybe two tens, right? Like I'm getting up there, right? But it's like, I'm always like, oh, I want to do more. But it's like, let's stop and look where you couldn't even do a push up. And now you can do push ups. And you know what I mean? So it's like being present and grounding and not always chasing the future goals, I think is a big part of how you can work with your body dysmorphia as well. And I think it's very important to take the pictures, take the
Yes.
measurements, and you don't have to share it with anybody. But my biggest recommendation is get on the scale as much as fucking possible, take pictures and measure yourself as much as possible, realize how much you fluctuate with your weight, where you are in your cycle, especially women, and realize that the more that you confront doing those things, the less it'll have hold on you. So
Yeah.
I'm not in the camp of avoiding things because they don't make us feel good, in the sense that we need to kind of get over them. So if you're a person that doesn't like looking at the scale because it affects you that much, get on that fucking scale every goddamn day till it doesn't affect you anymore. Because it is literally just a tool. It is just a measurement tool, and you are allowing it in your mind to have more control over you that you need to, because it is just a number. It's just a tool for you to measure. Now, my 150 and 200 is going to look different as your 150 and 200 versus somebody else's. So we're not comparing to other people's. We're comparing to ourselves and understanding within a week, especially getting your period, you could go up 10 pounds, right? So I think if we could just confront some of those things and not be so afraid of it, the mindset of they're just tools and the pictures, but then again, looking back and being like, holy shit, look at those muscles grow. Maybe it doesn't look good every week, but you look back 6 months, you're going to see change, right? If you just keep trying. So I think those are good tools too that I wanted to lay out, is like, use the tools that are there. And if it's not a positive tool for you, work on that mindset to make it a positive tool and see that it shouldn't have hold over your life. That's my personal
Journeys,
hot take on scales. I think you should go on them until they don't have power and not get rid of them. That's just my personal take.
I agree with you, and it is super controversial because, like, when I was having problems with the scale, everybody said just get rid of it. And I was like, I will go into a full-blown spiral. And then what you said about the journey was so true. Like, I think that if you're truly serious about transformation, whether it just be physical, your health, throw out timeline
Mm-hmm.
and just spend every day doing the next right thing.
Yep.
Things will come. It should be a lifestyle. And if you think of it as a diet, that's when you get like demotivated and you can get don't tell your body it's a diet. Just like every day be like, what positive change
What
can I make today?
nourishment? What
Yeah,
nourishment?
can I drink more water? Can I go for a little 5-minute walk after my meals today? Like I think that's huge. People don't even realize that, just like walking, like literally walking.
Up and down the
And
stairs at your home if you can't go outside.
yeah, like
Dance around the fucking living room for 5 minutes.
don't don't rush transformation. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm so with you on the scale thing. Like think that that's what I did. I used to
Mm-hmm.
get like my day would be ruined if I didn't like the weight.
Totally.
Now I use it as data.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually find it interesting. Like for example, on Christmas, I was 10 pounds after Christmas Day.
Yep.
10
Yep.
pounds. I ate an entire bread bowl.
I
Like
know.
obviously. Like obviously. And
Right?
so I that used to throw me. This
Yes.
time I was like, oh, I'm interested. And I saw the next day I was down 5 pounds. And then I went back to I didn't cut calories the next day. I ate my regular food, did my regular workouts, and then I was fine 2 days later. It's literally like your body's going to fluctuate. And if you're so worried about what the number says, I think it's just important to
Face your
educate yourself.
fear.
Like,
Face your
yeah,
fear of
face your
it.
fear.
Why are you afraid of a
I,
number? Like, I get it. I get it. But when we keep just saying, well, my doctor, well, I grew up and this and cool. I get it.
it
Same though.
makes me,
I got threatened.
it
So
make,
what did I do? I went and got strength, and now I'm boxing. So someone threatens me, I can throw a fucking punch wall or pretend to, or you know what I mean, or have some strength behind it. Instead of everyone, I'm just 2025 is not the excuses of like, oh, when I was a kid, but this and that. Whether I get it, I get it. We all have it though,
yeah,
and it's adult
well, buddy,
responsibility to fix
it's
it.
not 1940
It's
anymore.
not. And we have so
We're
much
doing
at our
things
hand,
differently.
right? We have so much at our hand. Let's take personal responsibility. And I'm not saying it's easy and I'm not, but let's do the shadow work. Let's face it. Why do you think that every time you stand on the scale, you're a fucking Tina the tuna? Is that because your mom called you fat, or is it because of society? Like, let's work through it. Let's talk about it instead of just being like, well, just get rid of the scale and don't even look at that problem because it's so fucking triggering. It's like, no, 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 put that fucking eggshell on there and smash it. Like, let's smash the eggshells. Let's not walk on them anymore. What is wrong? Why do we have eggshells? Let's get rid of the fucking eggshells.
We can't keep living in a society where every time something triggers you, we get rid of it.
Can't.
Like, it's
Can't.
just, we can't.
And I get
And
there's
like,
some things, like, of course, I'm not talking like extremes, like, rape or like abuse. Like, I'm understanding, but for ourselves internally, right? For like society is making this. Who fucking cares what society says? What's the next brick you got to lay down? What's the next step that you have to do in your personal life? The rest will come, and get so obsessed with your personal life and your personal development that it really doesn't matter. Like, listen a little bit, if you're, doing something that's inappropriate and people around you are being like, hey, I'm a bit worried. We do have to take, but for the most part, I just want everyone to be like, oh, society says, your society, you decide.
Yeah, screw that. Like I'm my own person.
You're your own
I
society.
also hope that like this conversation about health leads us like it's like like I really believe that if you're doing things for your health, like the body will follow because back to like if you're too overweight and that is unhealthy. We know that is like one of the major causes. Like you will die younger if you're
Yes.
overweight. That's fact, that's science,
It's
point blank.
medically. Yeah.
With this conversation, I hope that we see more access to blood work in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it so hard to get blood work done to figure out what's wrong? Why can't we educate people on their health? I feel like we deny it.
Yep.
We gaslight people. How many times in Canada have you been to the doctor, the walk-in clinic? Because I can say for me multiple times, and your GP is overweight.
Oh, yeah.
That shouldn't happen.
No, no.
Your
They don't know anything.
general practicing doctor shouldn't be overweight.
Mm-mm.
And so I totally get why people have body dysmorphia and confusion because the medical doctors are not trained in actual health.
Yeah.
They're glorified pharmacists.
Yes, yes, yes.
Sue me.
Well, they just don't
They're
know.
just
They
giving,
just don't know like health and wellness and nutrition, right? So it's like when most of the stuff spawns from poor lifestyle, and that's good or bad, economical, whatever. I've had it too. I get it. I've been there, but there are other choices that can be made. And I don't think we knew that. We don't know the value of food and nutrition and how that relates to your mental health, how that shows up in your body. So it's like bodybuilders get it because they eat those foods to get lean, and then they see the repercussions of eating healthy and doing that. Obviously, they go to extremes, but I feel like that bodybuilding and being in the fitness in the gym, you get to see those things and you see the value of nutrition, right? Where growing up, it was like, well, I'm eating food. Why does it matter if it's McDonald's or if it's food? It's like it's calories and it's like no, there's yes, but there's quality of food. Like there needs to be more education on prevention of obesity and body dysmorphia and all of those things, and there's just not. It's like, oh, well, you're overweight. Here's Ozempic that causes this, that, and the other. It's not, well, how did you get there? And I'm not saying some people should use those drugs. Some people definitely need to use them. But it's not everyday people, right? And where's the conversation to prevention? How did you get here? Mentally, physically, all of that, right? So it's just like, let's have the conversation on prevention, not, okay, we're too skinny, too big, too whatever. Now just take these medications or whatever. Here's the band aid. Throw this out. It's like, let's get to the root cause. What makes you eat so much? What, like, were you poor as a child and now you're not? So you get to eat all these things? Like, what, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I hope the conversation, I think we're both on the same page, is like, where did this root cause
yeah,
come from, right? Where's your blood work? Where's all those things? Instead of just going to the doctor being like, oh, you're anxious, here's some medication. Oh, you're depressed, here's some Xanax. It's like, no. Why?
yeah, because none of that is helping the body
None of
dysmorphia
it.
epidemic. And it is kind
No,
of an epidemic. Like
it
it's
is.
causing people to totally lose themselves, lose
Mm-hmm.
confidence. Like body dysmorphia is always going to be a thing. But I think if people felt good at their core, you don't see it as much, right? Like a lot of it is dysregulation, and nobody feels good at their core, and that's not the people's fault, really. It's like our organizations, like it goes so deep, man. It runs so
I know. It
deep.
could go, I know. And it's hard. It's like, where's the line of personal responsibility and then society? And it's like, but we have this at our fingertips now. There's more conversations, and that's why we have these conversations. That's why we have podcasts. That's why we have YouTubers. That's why we have content creators to spark these conversations, share their experiences so that people don't feel alone, that they feel empowered, because unfortunately, systems are set up to make money off of you. And how do they make money off of you? To make you feel less than. And that is in every single platform, in every single industry. It is what it is. So if we don't want to be affected by it, we have to A, not feed into it, and B, start working on how do we get the fulfillment outside, sorry, within ourselves instead of outside of validations of, are we got enough, the right makeup, the right handbags, the right face, the whatever. It's just like focus on being happy. One thing I think both of us get a lot is like people always like our energy, right? That's the first people
Yeah.
comment on is my energy. I know you get the same thing. And it's like, because I'm living authentically. People don't walk up to me and go, you have wrinkles, right? So it's like, why would I? Yeah, they're there. And by society, I am not young looking. Well, fuck yeah, I'm 38. I've been through my shit. This is my, so you know how people read your palm? This is my palm. This
Yeah.
is my life. This is what has happened in my life. I'm not personally going to erase that because it unpersonalizes me and all those things, but it doesn't change how I show up and how I want to be. And like I said, people are like, you have such great energy. And it's because I focus on the things that bring me purpose and alignment, not showing up as a picture perfect human being, because that's not where I feel like my beauty doesn't come from my face. It comes from my aura and my energy. And so that's where I just hope that we can focus on more, because I believe if you focus on that, like you said, the body and the energy will follow. Not everyone that you love and your favorite people are the most beautiful people. It's their aura and their energy, right? So let's work with our body dysmorphia to understand that we don't have to be this cookie cutter, whatever the fuck we think society needs to be. Just focus on you. Ground yourself. Find mindset, gratitude. Like you said, the body will follow because you're in an alignment. And like energy chi wise, you're going to be exuding it. And I want to be known for when people walk in the room, they feel that energy, not, oh my God, she was the prettiest girl and she had the most flawless eyeliner. Like, that's never going to happen.
I can't ever remember leaving a room saying that. And like I would just ask anybody, and I say this all the time to my friends. It's like when I watch my friends laugh or see us laugh together, I am so grateful for the laugh lines
Yes.
and the smiles. Like that is like I don't ever want my friends to erase that. That's our history. And my question to people who like really feel like they need it is like, do you ever look at your friends and think they need it?
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
do you ever look at your friends and think they need to be different?
Yes.
Because why do you look at yourself and think that?
Treat yourself like you would treat your best friend. You wouldn't tell your bestie you're not good enough because of those things, right? And I think
Yeah,
that's
you
all it
wouldn't
is.
go to
I just
your,
don't want people to feel like they're less than and they have to put themselves at risk, right? I think that's where we both feel that comes from. Like, you're beautiful the way you
yeah,
are. And like you said, like when I met you girls and like I see your smile lines and we're all laughing together, I'm like, the energy and the vibe is so good. I'm not just being like, oh my God, she has so many, her face moved so much in like a negative way. I'm just like, look at these expressions. We're having so much fun.
yeah, it's weird. And I don't think, and if you are someone who goes into rooms and you're so focused on like people's image, I think that's something you should look inward at because that
Totally.
should not be what you're focusing on. And maybe that's a sign that there is a lack of self-love and
Mhm.
self-trust. And that's not a bad thing. We've all been
No.
there. I
Yes.
think it's actually
Still
beautiful
working
to
on
be
it.
able to say like,
Yes.
yeah, it's an everyday thing.
Yes.
Like we gotta, everybody's just gotta stop pretending that they've got it all together all the
Oh,
time. We're all messy and imperfect, and that's what makes life goddamn beautiful. And I'll die on that
it
hill.
is. I'll fucking die on that hill too. And like, don't get me wrong, we all love to do it. We all love to go and do those photo shoots. We love having our moments where we put ourselves together. But what I love too is when people just open themselves up at the core and they do that because they want other people to feel less alone. And I think that authenticity, that real talk, that, like, I don't give a fuck if you love stuff, just be honest by it. If you're proud of your body and steroids got you there, just be honest about it. I don't really give a shit what anybody does with their lives. Would I prefer that everyone was just we were all hippies on a farm and we could just all live and not have to worry about these chemicals and makeups and stuff? Of course, but that's not real life. It's not why we're here. It's not real life. I understand that. But we could also do some work to try and check ourselves to be like, hey, are we doing a little bit extreme? Y'all say you don't like consumerism, but you're doing it. You say the patriarchy has these standards, but you're living within them. So maybe it's just like break out of it, because that's what I've done.
Yeah,
Like, I don't wear makeup anymore. I don't give a shit.
yeah.
Because you know what? You're going to see my acne through the fucking makeup. We all know that. We all know that there's that one girl. I was that girl. And it was because society made me look. And I was like, who in society actually came up to my face and said, you need to put makeup on because of your acne? Nobody. I made that up in my head because that's what I think society. So just like really question if you're doing something for yourselves and you're like, oh, I have to do all these things and have this upkeep because society. No, we're proof.
So not
Well, it's
true.
not true. You can do all those things, but you don't have to do those things. And that's what I want girlies to know. You can do those things, be informed, but you don't have to be valued.
And there's girls out there who are gonna love you and want to be your bestie just the way you are.
Yes, and please be vocal about it, right? Like I love when I see other people being vocal about it, like owning themselves and like when people are like, "Oh, I'm not wearing a filter," like let's do that. Like I always think like we're pissed off at MTV and all those things and Playboy for the fucked up images that they helped us create, right?
We perpetrated it.
We're doing it. We're doing it for the
We're
next
doing it right now.
generations. We're doing it by over filtering, overdoing things, and telling women that they need to change themselves to be worthful. And I just don't think that that's where we want to go. But I think that again, these conversations, starting the year with this conversation is great. It's January. It's New Year, new me. You guys, I think that's amazing. Get on board with your goals, but do it for your health. And let's change the fitness industry from aesthetic to wellness and focus on the strength and being a whole spiritual, not spiritual, but like a full embodied, not just aesthetics that'll come. I think wellness in 2025 is where we want to see the fitness industry go, about true health, true wellness, and not this fake aesthetic, plastic. Again, not hating people that are plastic, but just being real about it, right? Like,
Yeah.
those lip fillers hurt, those titties hurt. Let's be honest about those things so people have informed consent going forward into 2025. Is that what your hope is?
That is exactly my hope. Like, let's have 2025 have a lot more transparency, like in health, in fitness.
All of it.
I want it to be more positive. Like, I want to throw out rigidity in
Mhm.
2025 and be open. Like, let's have open-minded conversations that
Yes.
lead people to feel empowered. Like, I'm so done with putting people in boxes that don't work for them.
Mm-mm. So
I want
not.
to hear what people have to say, even if I don't agree.
100%, 100. And I want to hear it more because I want to work through that myself, and I want to have the hard conversations because I'm probably missing a huge piece of it because my opinions are based on my experiences and my lens and what I've looked into. There's a million billion people in the world, a million billion lenses and circumstances, and there's not enough time in a day to learn it all, right? Unless you're chat like GPT or something like that, right? So it's like, of course, everyone's going to not know your circumstance or your situation. And maybe by sharing that, they'll have a new opinion of it, right? So let's lead into 2025 by being authentic and real and not worrying about being canceled for our honest opinions. Let's have hard conversations and let's focus more within and our lanes in our community. And honestly, I wanted to say this before, and I never thought these words would come out of my mouth, but it's crazy how much more I actually enjoy TikTok over Instagram because I feel like
Really?
Instagram, which I never thought I would say, honest to God, I actually like almost hate myself for saying this, but I find like TikTok is more informational and Instagram is more look at me and look what I'm doing and
Yeah.
pictures and da, 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 and perfectly curated, where TikTok is more like videos and news and like, so it's just kind of crazy because since I've been on there, like I don't feel less than I do when I go on Instagram and see this perfect curated timeline versus when I'm on TikTok. It's just like feeding me all this fun algorithm stuff that I'm researching versus, and maybe just because that's my algorithm, but like I don't have the fitness industry on TikTok. I don't have any of those things. So it's literally just information gathering versus perfectly curated model type that's Instagram, which I never expected. So I'm not gonna lie, like I have been off of Instagram more and on TikTok more because I just feel like it's more productive for my brain, which is crazy because there's TikTok rot versus just seeing people's perfectly curated timelines. Even in my wall, I try to make it look all this like aesthetic. And then it's like TikTok, there's just no aesthetic. It's just messy as fuck. And so like to your point, like being aware of that as well, right? Like where it's like TikTok, I'm surrounded by people that are researching and learning about the government and all that. And it's like Instagram's like all these fitness models and OF models and people that made me feel so good about myself, where I'm like, let's get into all this nerdy shit and all this rabbit hole stuff. So I think that's another thing that I find super interesting. I don't know if anybody else can relate, but I'd be interested if anybody else feels that way. Cause yeah, I've been backing off of Instagram, but still being connected because of TikTok, which is great, if that makes sense.
It's so interesting. I did not expect you to say those words. I was
I have
shocked.
been so
I was,
against TikTok for a
I'm sh-
very, very long time. And now, especially with the censorship and seeing the difference, it's like, oh, I actually learn a lot more on TikTok than I do on Instagram now. It's so censored, especially for Canada. So it's like the
oh,
devil,
dude.
sometimes is a little bit better, right? So it's like, I'm
Oh,
probably going to
don't even
peace
get me
out.
started on Canada.
I
Otherwise, we'll be
know.
here
I know. Well,
another
that'll be the
17.
next. Well, this is just the first episode that you're on from the season. Doesn't mean it's your last. It's your first now. It's about a good
Oh,
one.
babe.
We have to come back. I mean, next year is going to be the federal election of the century. If that even, like, that could even happen by the time this launches. Who fucking knows, right? So fingers crossed. So we'll have you back for that. But this has been amazing, Darren. I appreciate you so much in so many different ways, and you know that. Is there so before we go though, can you let everyone know what your Instagram handle is if they do want to follow you? Because like I said, you guys, she's super motivational. Because like I said, even though you have a banging body and all those things, that is not the focus of you and your Instagram. It's strength and empowerment and like doing things you didn't think you could, and like you just inspire me all the time. So please share your handle.
Aw. Well, before I do that, thank you so much for having me on. I love you so much. I love your podcast. Like, you do so much for everybody who listens to your show. I know you don't always give yourself credit for it, but you are a voice for some people who don't necessarily have a platform. So thank you. And if anybody wants to follow me, you can follow me at Darrian, Darrin. KC. That's my ad. Darrian KC. I don't have TikTok. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
have YouTube. I'm a solo Instagram person. That's all I've got. So if you want to hang out with me, that's where you can hang out with me.
And that's where I started fangirling you from far before. And I seen it. I was like, oh my God, not only is this girl like so real and raw. I was like, she's fucking strong too. And it just motivates me, right? Like, that's what I was talking about, having the people in your life that you feel motivated on, not less than. And you're definitely a person that has always added to my life and also equally told me about me adding to your life. And that's my thing for 2025. It's like, I'm only filling cups that are filling mine. I'm not doing this unbalance anymore. If I'm not at your table, I don't want you to not eat. I'm just not sitting at your table. You're not sitting at mine. I wish you best, but we're only filling cups up. And so thank you for being that friend and the motivation because, yeah, I definitely will be a little bit weak and then I'll think about what you did. And I'm like, not in a bad way. I'm like, I can do more because Darrian says I can do more. Right. And so, yeah, definitely 10/10 recommend following you, girly. But first, but not last time on the podcast. So thank you very much again. And guys, until
Thank
next
you.
time, bye. Thank you guys so much for the support. I cannot thank you enough for being here. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please give me a follow at the Be Real Babe podcast on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, and Pinterest. You can also find me on Facebook at the Be Real Collective. Until next time, guys, bye.